The sound of the front door closing had become Emily's signal, not just that David was gone, but that the silence she lived with was once again hers to fill. David, her husband of 4 years, was as predictable as sunrise. Every morning, he left at 7:05 a.m. sharp, black coffee in hand, tie slightly crooked, briefcase swinging from his left hand. Emily often stood at the window, watching his car pull out of the driveway, unsure of what emotion to assign to the moment, relief, resentment, maybe both. Their marriage, from the outside, was spotless. No screaming matches, no affairs, at least not yet. Friends envied their stability. How David provided a comfortable life with weekend getaways and a meticulously maintained home. But what they didn't see was the space between them, not the physical kind, but the emotional void that stretched wider each day. Emily spent her days in quiet routine. She worked part-time from home, designed wedding invitations, and filled the rest of her hours with cleaning, cooking, and second-guessing. The spark they once shared, the easy laughter, spontaneous dates, intimate glances had faded into a rhythm of formality. David's love now came in reminders to check the thermostat or texts asking what's for dinner. That morning, Emily found herself drawn to her bookshelf, pulling out an old photo album hidden behind dusty novels. Her fingers trembled as she flipped through pages of her past, college parties, road trips, laughter caught in still frames. And there, nestled between a photo of her holding a sparkler and another of her with windswept hair, was Jake, her ex-boyfriend, her almost forever. He had been her opposite in every way. Impulsive, wild, emotionally raw. With Jake she had felt everything: fear, joy, pain, passion, the kind of love that leaves marks. They'd broken up before graduation, both too young and stubborn to compromise. Still, the memory of his voice, that crooked smile, and the way he made her feel utterly visible had never fully faded. She stared at the photograph longer than she meant to. David called that afternoon, a brief check-in between meetings. "I'll be home late, that client from Seattle's in town." "Okay," she replied, knowing he wouldn't hear the disappointment under her breath after the call. She sat in silence, the kind that wrapped around her like a weighted blanket. She picked up her phone, hesitated, and typed Jake. To her surprise, the number was still saved. She hadn't spoken to him in years, but curiosity gnawed at her. Her thumb hovered over the screen. He typed, "Just thinking about you. Hope you're doing okay." Then deleted it. She sighed, stood up, and walked to the kitchen, but her thoughts stayed with that photo, that boy, that version of herself that once burned with feeling. Later that evening, David returned home, kissed her on the cheek without really looking at her, and went straight to his laptop. He barely touched the dinner she'd made. When she asked about his day, his answers were clipped, efficient, fine, busy, same old. That night, as they lay in bed back to back, Emily stared at the ceiling. Her mind drifted again to Jake. She remembered the way he used to kiss her like the world could end at any moment, the way he saw her, not just as a partner, but as a story worth reading cover to cover. She reached for her phone again, typed the message once more, and this time she sent it. The screen glowed for a moment, then dimmed. A pulse of guilt fluttered in her chest, but beneath it, something else stirred, anticipation. Beside her, David had already drifted off, his breath slow and steady. Emily turned on her side, facing the wall, her heart beating just a little too fast. She hadn't intended to reopen old doors, but maybe the ones in her current life had already closed, and so, in the hush of a darkened bedroom, the first thread of temptation began to pull. Jake replied the next morning, "Emily, I didn't expect to hear from you. I'm good. More importantly, how are you?" She stared at the message for several minutes, fingers tapping against her mug. His tone hadn't changed, warm, curious, slightly flirty. It was like time hadn't passed at all. How was she? Complicated, married, lonely. "I'm okay. Just saw an old picture and thought of you." They exchanged texts all morning. Little check-ins, shared memories, subtle probes into each other's lives. Jake hadn't married. He was running a photography business now, traveling often. He said he never stayed in one place too long. It kept life interesting. Emily couldn't help but notice the contrast. Her life was all stillness, routine, predictability. By the third day, their conversations grew longer, deeper. He asked questions David hadn't in years. "Are you happy? What do you do for fun? What makes you feel alive? Those questions were dangerous, and yet Emily answered everyone. She didn't mention David at first, she didn't lie, but she also didn't volunteer the truth. Eventually Jake asked outright, "So are you single?" Her fingers paused over the keyboard. She exhaled, "Married. But it's complicated." He didn't reply right away. When he did, it was gentle. "That's fair. You don't have to explain anything you're not ready to." That made her stomach tighten. He still knew how to lower her defenses with just a few words. Later that week, David announced he'd be traveling overnight for a client dinner to towns over. Emily simply nodded that night. She waited until the house was empty before texting. "Jake, want to stop by? Just to catch up. It's been forever." His reply came in seconds. "I'm already in the car." Emily stood in the mirror, fixing her hair for the first time in weeks. She wasn't sure what she was doing. She told herself it was just closure, a harmless visit. But the mirror didn't lie. She looked excited, nervous, hopeful when Jake arrived. She opened the door to find him smiling like he used to, easy, familiar. A little mischievous time had matured him. His hair was a little shorter, his jaw more defined. But his eyes were still the same. He stepped inside looking around. "Wow, you look incredible," he said, almost in disbelief. She laughed, trying to deflect the rush of emotion. "You're just being nice." "No, I'm just being honest." They sat in the living room, talked for hours, laughed. He told her about his travels, his clients, the people he'd met. She told him about her work, her days, her carefully quiet life. He leaned forward at one point, his voice low. "Do you ever miss us?" Emily's breath caught. She didn't answer right away. "I miss me when I was with you," she said finally. The silence that followed was soft and charged. He reached for her hand. She let him. "I never stopped thinking about you," he whispered. The room felt warmer, closer. He leaned in, and this time she didn't stop him. Their lips met. Tentative at first, then hungry. The kiss was both old and new, full of the heat they used to share and the weight of everything unspoken since. But just as quickly she pulled back. "Jake, I know," he said gently. "I shouldn't have." She stood up, heart racing. "I didn't invite you over for that. I didn't come for that," he said, "but seeing you, hearing you laugh again. I just got caught up." She believed him, and hated that part of her didn't want him to stop. He stood, hands in his pockets, eyes searching hers. "Do you want me to leave?" She shook her head barely. They didn't kiss again. But he stayed. They sat side by side on the couch, shoulders touching, the space between them alive with unspoken desire. When he finally left, she watched him walk to his car, heart in her throat. Back in bed, the sheets felt colder than ever, and David's side of the bed, though empty, felt more crowded with guilt than she could have imagined. Still, she didn't block Jake's number. She didn't tell David. She didn't delete the memory. And in the days that followed, she started leaving. The door open, just a little, whenever her husband left the house. The secret became a rhythm. Every time David left, Jake filled the void. It wasn't always physical. Sometimes they just talked, sometimes they held each other in the quiet. But it was always more than it should have been. Emily told herself she was in control, that she could keep both worlds spinning. With David, she performed the role of the devoted wife, clean home, warm meals, polite conversation. With Jake, she was raw and real, the woman she remembered being before life became so still. But duplicity has a cost. One night, after another dinner where David barely looked up from his phone, he paused. His eyes studied her face more closely than they had in months. "You've been different lately," he said. She forced a smile. "Good different or bad different?" "I don't know. Just not yourself." She reached for her water, deflecting. "Maybe I'm just tired." David nodded, but something in his gaze lingered. He didn't believe her, not completely, and Emily felt the first crack in her illusion. The next morning, she woke up to find David gone early. No note. No goodbye kiss. Just an empty space and a growing ache in her chest. Jake arrived that afternoon. She didn't plan on seeing him that day, but when he texted, "I miss you, can I come by?" she didn't say no. They ended up in her bedroom. The sheets were still warm from last night's sleep beside her husband. Afterward, as Jake traced lazy circles on her shoulder, Emily stared at the ceiling, the guilt louder than his breath. "Jake," she said softly, "what are we doing?" He turned toward her, Something we should have never stopped, but I'm married, yeah, he said, but are you happy? She didn't answer. She couldn't. Later that week, the unraveling began. David came home early. Unexpectedly, Emily had just said goodbye to Jake. Her hair was tousled, her skin flushed, her blouse wrinkled. She barely had time to reset the living room before David walked in. His eyes swept the space, then landed on her. Suspicion flared. Instantly, were you with someone? What? No. Of course not. Her voice cracked under the weight of the lie. David didn't press. He just nodded slowly and disappeared into the bedroom. That night he didn't touch her, didn't speak, and Emily knew the truth was no longer buried. It was surfacing inch by inch. 2 days later, he confronted her. I know something's going on, Emily. She looked up from her tea, trying to hold her composure. David, just be honest, he said. Don't insult me with lies. Her defenses crumbled. The dam broke. Tears streamed down her face before words could form. I didn't mean for it to happen. His face went pale. He leaned against the wall, staring at her like she was a stranger. Jake, he asked, voice hollow. She nodded, trembling. David didn't scream. He didn't curse. He just walked away. Out the front door into the night. She didn't follow. Days passed. Jake offered comfort, but something had shifted. What once felt thrilling now felt heavy. Consequence had killed the fantasy. I can be with you, Jake said one evening, really be with you, but Emily didn't respond. She couldn't promise him something she wasn't sure she wanted anymore, without David. Her home felt like a shell, without secrecy. Her time with Jake felt incomplete. She had lost the anchor of one life and wasn't sure she wanted the chaos of the other. One quiet morning, she sat at the kitchen table, fingers curled around a mug gone cold. Her phone buzzed. Jake again. She didn't open the message. Instead, she scrolled to his contact and hesitated. Her thumb hovered, heart thudding. Then she deleted the thread, deleted his number, deleted the version of herself that thrived in shadows. She wasn't proud of what she'd done, but she wasn't going to keep running from it either. Later David returned, not with forgiveness, but with formality. Divorce papers. He didn't say much. She signed them silently. As he left, he turned to her. You never even told me you were unhappy. I didn't know how, she whispered. He nodded. Now, you know. And with that, he was gone, this time for good. Emily sat alone in her now quiet home, no longer caught between two men, but facing something far harder, herself.